everybody, thank you very much for watching. Thank you to all my new subscribers. I appreciate all your inputs, brothers and sisters. This is a continuation of my previous video, because about who I believe the last pope really is. Petrus Romanus. Unfortunately, last video I did, it cut right at the end. I mean, almost like someone doesn't want me to release it. I was just about to reveal who it is. I'll give reasons in the last video why I don't think Pope Francis is the last pope. I'll speak more about it now. But before I do that, I'll just read a bit of the Bible, because there's in Revelation chapter 3, 13, it talks about two beasts. Why is it very important? You need to really know who the last pope is, if it's not Pope Francis, because God has revealed it to me, but it seems that others have already been revealed before me who the real last pope is. It's important because in Revelation, that's coming soon, it will be working hand in hand with the Antichrist. Let me read the two beasts in Revelation 13. This is the second beast, the false prophet, which we believe is the Pope. I believe not the current Pope, the one after him. Listen, then, this is it. Then I saw another beast, which it came out of the earth. It had two horns like a lamb's horns, so it pretends to be good, like a, and it spoke like a dragon. It used the vast authority of the first beast in its presence. It forced the earth and all who live on it to worship the first beast. His head had heels. That's the Antichrist. The second beast performed great miracles. It made fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the sight of everyone. And it deceived all the people living on earth by means of the miracles which it was allowed to perform in the presence of the first beast. The beast told them, this is the beast, to build an altar in honour of the beast that had been wounded by the sword and yet lived. The second beast was allowed to breathe life into the image of the first beast, so that the image could talk and put to death, listen to this, and put to death all those who would not worship it. The beast forced all the people, this is it, to have a mark placed on the right hand and their forehead. He's going to be very bad. He's going to work with the Antichrist. This is it. And the first one, with the Antichrist, verse 5 of chapter 13, the beast was allowed to make proud claims, which was insulting to God. It was permitted to have authority for 42 months, 3.5 years. It began to curse God, his name, and the place where he lives, and it was allowed to fight. God allowed him to fight against God's people and to defeat them, and was given authority over all the nations. This is it. Then listen then, if you have ears. Whoever is meant to be captured will surely be captured. Whoever is meant to be killed by the sword will surely be killed by the sword. But listen to this. This calls for endurance and faith on the part of God's people. Yeah, because this guy, the false prophet, the last pope, or Petrus Romanus, he will be the false prophet, working hand in hand with the Antichrist, I believe, or Gog, or Erdogan, Turkey. And they will, he will, what do you call it? That's another video. But this is about the Antichrist. This is in chapter 13. It says it will be the religious leader, that's false prophet, will point people towards the Antichrist. He will be like many false prophets of our own day and in the past, making people want to hear, make people hear what they want to instead of the truth of the Bible. Anyway, this is what Malachi said of the last Pope. I'll repeat it. I said last time. In the final persecution, this is of Peter the Roman, or Petrus Romanus, from Malachi, a pope that predicted the last pope. So in the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will reign Petrus Romanus, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations, after which the seven-hilled city, the Vatican, will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people at the end. God will finally destroy Babylon the Great at the end. But it will be, when he's around, it'll be during a great tribulation, where he will work with the Antichrist to persecute true Christians and bring many, because of his false teachings, he will deceive many with his miracles and false teachings, and many will leave in their droves, the great apostasy, So, as I said, God revealed to me who the last Pope is, rather than Pope Francis. Someone, let me read an article, because it seems that Tom Horn, was revealed the truth before me, and this is what he said, I believe that Tom Horn was revealed who, as I said, the false prophet, the last Pope it really is. I'm going to read an article. I will leave a link. And the title is Tom Horn, Petrus Romanus will soon replace Pope Francis. So it shows that he didn't believe that Pope Francis was the Pope, the last Pope, the Antichrist. And I'm going to read something. It says here, Tom Horn explains why the Pope Francis might not be one who fulfills St. Malachi's 878-year-old prophecy, which foretold specific details of each of the 112 popes, including Petrus Romanus, which means Peter the Roman, who will be serving as Pope when the Rome is destroyed and God judges his people. And it goes on to say, Malachi wrote, as I said, the prophecy, in the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church, there will sit Peter the Roman, who will pasture his sheep in many tribulations, and when these things are finished, the city of the seven hills will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge his people at the end. And it goes on to say, in 2011, Tom Horn accurately predicted the 2012 resignation of Pope Benedict XVI, the 265th Pope. Pope Francis replaced him, taking office on March 13, 2013. Would you believe he even wrote a book, this Tom Horn, about, he believed that Benedict would resign, and it was accurate about that. He rewrote it in 2012 and he resigned. He actually predicted it, and he resigned 1 year later. Everyone agrees that Pope Benedict XVI was the 100th and 11th Pope since Malachi's prophecy. So Pope Francis needs to be the 112th. This one who must fulfill the prophecy. However, Tom Horn believes Pope Francis is not the one. This is what he said. I believe Pope Francis was not canonically elected, not properly. I believe some hanky-panky went on in the conclave, In fact, I think that has something to do with why he picked St. Francis of Assisi as his namesake. His real name is Bergoglio, and as you know, because Francis of Assisi prophesied about the final pope, and he said he would not be canonically elected. You know, I believe he got the name, Francis, as it says there, from Francis of Assisi, as almost like just sort of as a decoy to make himself look like, he's from Rome and an Italian. Now that means that he's a placeholder for reasons that we cannot quite figure out. In other words, he said he was, I believe Francis was canonically elected, and and the other one was forced out, Pope Benedict. So therefore, as I said in the previous one, it's illegitimate, because Benedict was one of the only few people to ever, one of the only few popes to ever resign, and you're meant to die. So therefore, it's illegitimate, really. This current pope, as he said, Tom Horn, he believes that some hanky-panky went on the conclave, went on the inside for this one to be elected. And again, using Francis from Francis of Assisi, you can see he's just trying to, I believe he's just like John the Baptist bringing in Christ, but this time he's like John the Baptist before the Antichrist comes along. He's the last pope, or before the last pope and the last false prophet. He's just making the way, before he comes. He goes on to say, now that means that he's a placeholder for reasons that we cannot figure out. But I believe he is either going to be removed from office, as Pope Francis, Tom Horn says, or going to step down like Benedict did soon, as the guy that comes up to take his place is actually going to be the real Pt2 by election, and that is Petrus Romanus. And this is what he said: the people that actually, some of the cardinals that voted for Pope Francis now want him to step down, he said. They want him to step down, and they want him, listen to this, to be replaced. This is who the real false prophet, last pope will be. And when he comes, then you know the tribulation is round the corner, and you need to be prepared, all Christians, for the persecution to come. This is what he said. They've published this, it's in the news. They want him to step down, some cardinals in the Vatican. They want him, Pope Francis, to step down, and they want him to be replaced by the Secretary of State at the Vatican, and listen to this, whose name literally means Petrus Romanus, Peter the Roman. Well, I'll explain. Guess who the current Secretary of State is? Commonly known as Cardinal Secretary of State, Pietro Parolin. Would you believe that? So that's who he is. Pietro Parolin. That's who I believe. I believe that Tom Horn's right. The current Secretary of State, is going to be the one that replaces him, the real last pope, or anti-pope, we should say, because he won't follow the Bible. He will twist it and deceive many people, and also be behind the persecution with the Antichrist. And this is what he says. Tom Horn says that Pietro Parolin had a meeting with Obama, and also here, this is very important. Parolin seems to fit better seems to be a better fit for the title of Peter the Roman than Pope Francis for several reasons. And this is it. First, his real name is Pietro, which is Italian for Petrus in Latin, which means Peter in English. Right? And remember, Pietra, if you add an A, means rock also. Pietra. So his real name is Pietro. He fits better than Pope Francis, which, you know, is not Peter. His real name is not Peter. And second, unlike Pope Francis, who is a native of Argentina, born in Argentina, as I discussed in a previous video, Parolin is a native of Italy. He makes it a better fit for Peter the Roman, which makes him a better fit for Peter the Roman, who is Roman Italian, you know, rather than Pope Francis. Parents are Italian immigrants, but he was born in Argentina, born in Buenos Aires. Third, Parolin is 62 years old, 18 years younger than Pope Francis, which makes him much more likely to live long enough to see the fulfillment of Malachi's prophecy of being in office during the destruction of Rome. Right at the end, you know, Babylon the Great, it says in the Bible, will be destroyed. Because, you know, at the age of 80, at the age of 80, it seems like a stretch for Pope Francis to live long enough to fulfill the prophecies. So he's a bit too old. So, but it goes on to say that if Tom Horn is correct about Pope Francis being replaced by Pietro Parolin, and if the final Pope is the second beast in Revelation 3:13, known as false prophet, then it would appear Pope Francis was only preparing the way for the one to come. Now, what I believe, I think he's just like John the Baptist, preparing the way for the real false prophet. And so, you know, one, he was not, what do you call it, Pope Francis was not canonically elected, you know, not properly, and because the other one, I believe, it was forced out. Pope Francis is not his real name. He's not Italian, and he wasn't born in Italy. He was from Argentina, and Pietro means Peter. And also, this is another interesting fact I found out. You know, Pietro, from Pietro Parolin, Pietro means Peter, and I just found out what Parolin means. You wouldn't believe this. This is online. I typed Parolin. What's the meaning? According to a user from Brazil, the name Parolin means the surname Parolin comes from the medieval word pioroli, a large pot that stood on a tripod in the centre of the house. That's one. Secondly, a submission from Australia says the name Parolin means Roman, and it's of Italian origin. Can you believe that? That just blew me away. You know, literally, Pietro Parolin, Peter the Roman. That's his name. You know, that's just amazing. You know, it's got so many reasons. You know, he's just Pope Francis is not. That's not his real name, as I said. What's his name? His real name is George Mario Begloli. Giorgio Mario. It's not Peter. He was born in Argentina. He was not canonically elected because the other one was forced out. He needed to die first, but he was just put there. Very suspicious how, Benedict was forced out. So you've got all these reasons. I believe that Tom Horn was right. Petrus Romanus, the final pope, the one that will help the Antichrist persecute the true Christians, is Pietro Parolin. The 111, Pope Malachy, he mentions the identity of 111 popes with their mottos, and it's almost uncannily accurate, But this one, for some strange reason, the 112th, the real last pope, or anti-pope, Petrus Romanus, he never assigned a number. Something happened, and maybe I will discuss it another video because it's getting a bit long now. Something happens, and he put his name completely separate from the other 11. He never assigned a number, but I believe something different about him than the others. That he just used his real name. Unlike the popes, he used his own. I believe he used the person's real name, and I believe Petrus Romanus, Peter the Roman, is Pietro Parolin. At the moment, I think he's the Secretary of State. I can read a bit about him. I'll show you a little picture of who Pietro Parolin. Let's see. This is who I believe is the real last pope, the evil false prophet, not the current false prophet, Pope Francis. He's the last pope, the false prophet. That's who I believe it. Pietro Parolin. He's going to be the one that replaced Pope Francis, I believe. The one Malachy calls Petrus Romanus. What do you call it? This one here. Current Secretary of State. I will read an article a bit about him. I'm reading an article called "The Two Popes and Pietro the Roman" by Curia Boss. The Roman Curia Boss by Cynthia Newara. So she calls it "The Two Popes and Pietro," the Roman Curia Boss. And guess who the Roman Curia Boss is? Pietro Romanus, or Pietro Parolin. So that Pietro, or Peter in English, Parolin, is the head of the Roman Curia in the Vatican as its Secretary of State. He's being called papabile, a candidate to succeed Francis as Pope. So he's Secretary of State, head of the Roman Curia, and they believe a candidate to succeed Francis. April 2019 article on Catholic website Cruz stated that Pietro Parolin has become more powerful than you can possibly imagine, and the new constitution for reforming and governing the Church Roman Curia would make this obvious. The Cruz article ends with, "Within the Roman Curia, everyone will now know who's boss, and that is the Cardinal Secretary of State, Pietro Parolin." Well, that makes it quite clear. It says that he's a very, very powerful, very powerful. He wields a lot of power. That's what they're saying. It will be using Catholic websites in this writing to make the point that there are many Catholics dissatisfied with the Pope. And this is what it is. What is this new Catholic constitution about? And it goes on to say, this new Catholic constitution from the Vatican, this is it. says, the summary from the Catholic News Agency website analysts new Vatican constitution to centralise power in state secretary. A long-serving curial official said, this is not just total centralisation of power in the office of the Secretary of State. Nothing can be done without Pope's approval, and also nothing gets to the Pope except through Cardinal Parolin. It's the creation of a vice regency. So boy, he's wielding a lot of power. Everything's got to go through Parolin. He's wielding a lot of power. You see, the signs are there. An archbishop currently serving as a senior curia role is an essentially, essentially Soviet model. It says here, lots of meetings, lots of discussions, but in the end, the Secretary of State decides what will happen. So Parolin is wielding a lot of power already. There's signs there within a church. Everything has to go through him. He decides what happens in the end. Those mysteries of faith of the Catholic Church are indeed mysteries. For you will find lots of doctrines of men in the Catholic Church, but not many of its beliefs in the Bible. It's true. They're secularizing the Catholic faith. It sounds like this new constitution, besides giving Peter Parolin power over all the workings of the Catholic Church, will increase the Vatican's focus on trying to join different beliefs systems to the Mother Church, as it calls itself. And it says here the Vatican deal with China in September 2018 allows the communist government to recommend bishops of the Catholic Church. Why agree to a blatant secular compromise, it goes on to say. The agreement states that China will recommend popes before they are appointed by the Pope, and stipulates that the Pope can veto bishops that China recommends with limits. Francis, as part of the deal, lifted the excommunication of 7 bishops who had been appointed by China without papal approval. Also under the deal, 2 Vatican-aligned Chinese bishops recognised by the Pope had been asked to resign in favour of state-sanctioned prelates. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to realise that the Chinese government is only going to select bishops who are going to be loyal to the Communist Party. Meanwhile, the persecution of Chinese Catholics has continued, and of Protestants. And he goes on to say, from American magazine, Cardinal Parolin defends Vatican-China agreement amid criticism. And also it goes on to say, at a symposium, stand together to defend international religious freedom. Parolin defended the Vatican-China agreement, saying, we signed this agreement to help advance religious freedom, to find normalization for the Catholic community there, and then for all other religions to have space and a role to play. So he's for one world religion, and also standing for Chinese communist government, really. He doesn't mind who he pleases, it seems here. That Pope, it says Francis and Parolin and previous popes have shown they're Marxist, socialist or communist themselves, and or have bowed to countries that with those systems, secularizing in order to keep seminaries open and fattening up the Catholic Church. So it doesn't matter who he gets people from, got communist background, as long as he fills a church. But it's all bad intentions, secularizing the church, just to fatten up the Catholic Church. They man-made religion. This is here. An article states that the Muslim worship the same God as the Catholic Church. Therefore, both Francis and Parolin call them brothers and sisters, but the Muslim God is not God of the Bible. And Then there are the Vatican prayers alongside Muslim, Buddhists and Hindus, and reverence for their teachings, claiming they reflect a ray of truth which enlightens all men. No, you see, this false prophet, Parolin, and the current Pope are pushing, one world religion, saying that Muslim God is the same. It's not all Hindu or Buddhist. It's all lies, Paul goes on to say, all this is building towards the one world religion. As I said, Pope Francis is just paving the way, like Tom Horn says, for the real, false prophet, Pietro Parolin. All this is building towards one world religion. No false religion will have a role to play in salvation. It's true. Christ is the only way, the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through him. Yes, this one world religion where all religions are acceptable, and the Pope is pushing for it. Only salvation comes through Christ. I am the way, the truth and the life, John 14:6 says. Also the Bible, remember in Revelation 17, the mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots, the one that will be destroyed. Babylon refers to all false religion, especially Catholic Church and its daughters, the ones that split up, like Orthodox and Protestant, Church of England. The woman dressed in purple and scarlet sits on the 7 hills in Revelation 17. That's in Rome. And is drunk with the blood of the saints, the martyrs for Jesus, who refused to bow to the false prophets, false doctrines. Yeah, remember in the past the Catholic Church killed hundreds, thousands of true Christians. History has twisted things. The Catholic Church is the false Christianity. I might do a video about it. The true Christians were burnt at the stake. They were called heretics. No, this is going to happen again. With this false prophet. When he joins with the Antichrist, Muslim, I believe. He's going to go after all Christians and Jews. Saying the Muslim is the right way or whatever, the one world religion, whatever. So so this mother church will be aligned, one world government, one world religion will be aligned with the Antichrist in the tribulation until he's finished using her gain power, and with his 10 nation alliance, the Antichrist then will be destroyed with Babylon the Great. I believe that God will use, eventually, he will use the Antichrist to turn on false religion. That's another story, He will use the beast to turn on her. But God will use it, the Antichrist. So Satan knows the Bible prophecy too. What better way to keep people deceived by mixing truth with lies? Boy, the world is in a chaotic state. The devil's so clever, that he's made hundreds of religions, so divisive, so different, this decisive, he's very clever, Satan. He made so many hundreds of religions. It causes decisiveness, causes so much disagreement. That's why there's so many religions breaking away, and it causes a lot of hostility. But that's why Jesus said, not many will go on the narrow path, but on the broad path, because Satan's very clever. He's made all these false teachings. And it says here, not long before, there's a prophecy, it says not long before he died, in 1226, Francis of Assisi gathered the members of of his order and warned them of the great tribulation that would befall the Catholic Church in the end of the days before Christ's return. Yeah. And this is what he said. This is a prophecy from Assisi, Francis of Assisi, which the current Pope, he used his name, Francis. This is what he said, in that the devils will have unusual power. The immaculate purity of our order and of others will be so much obscured that there will be very few Christians who will obey the true sovereign pontiff and the Roman Church with loyal hearts and perfect clarity. At the time of this tribulation, a man not canonically elected will be raised to the pontificate, who by his cunning, listen to this, will endeavour to draw many into error and into death. See, this evil one, this prophecy from Francis of Assisi said he will make this Pope, last Pope I believe, as I said, Pietro Parolin, will endeavour to draw people to error. Full of false teachings. There will be a lot of leaving the church, and many will be drawn, and this is many error and death, drawn into death, because either literally with Christian persecution or lose their soul. So please, so this is there. So please, said Pope Francis, he is not canonically elected, as Benedict was forced out by a coup, I believe, and as it says in Walkerly, it says it would make Francis not elected properly. The canon law of the Catholic Church says the Pope's resignation is valid only if he makes the decision in full freedom and without pressure from others, and that wasn't the case. I believe he was forced out. Therefore, he, as I said, he's not he's not the Pope Francis. I'll give you reasons. I believe it's Pietro Parolin, and he's a false prophet. So please, keep awake spiritually, because so many people in the church are asleep, and the Pope is a blind guide, and a lot of religious leaders in the Catholic Church are blind guides, and as Jesus said, the blind will lead the blind into the pit of destruction. So please, if you haven't come to know Jesus Christ, please read the Bible and pray and repent through Jesus Christ, because he's the only way to salvation, as John 3:16 says. Repent now before it's too late, and be prepared, because persecution is coming. Thank you very much.